I didn't walk into that church thinking I'd walk out with the wrong bride, but life, apparently, had different plans. You ever think you've got it all figured out? Like, sure, life throws curveballs, but if you do the right things, work hard, be loyal, choose your person wisely, then mostly things fall into place. That's what I believed. My name's Ryan Baxter. I'm 33, I'm an architect based in Charleston, and up until 10 minutes into what was supposed to be the happiest day of my life, I thought I was doing everything right. I met Sierra at a corporate dinner. She wasn't even meant to be there, just tagging along with her friend from a PR firm my company was trying to hire. But the second she walked in, she owned the room. Quick with her words, charismatic, the kind of woman who doesn't just enter, she arrives. We dated for 3 years. I proposed on a weekend trip in Asheville. I was terrified, hands shaking, but when she said yes, it felt like everything was finally in sync. Fast forward a year and a half later, small chapel, soft music, fall leaves wrapped around the arch like something out of a wedding Pinterest board, family, friends, rows of white chairs, and me, standing up front, sweating, under my collar fiddling with my cufflinks. But Sierra was late. First 5 minutes I smiled it off. In minutes I looked at my best man Marcus, who whispered, "Probably fixing her veil, man." I nodded, laughed, tried to believe him. Then the music looped, and looped again, and then she walked in. Not Sierra, her sister, Lena. Lena came in. From the back of the chapel, not the bridal entrance, pale, shaking, eyes locked on me like she was carrying a bomb. She didn't rush. She just walked, and then, voice trembling, said the 2 words that flipped my life upside down. "She's gone." I didn't understand. "What do you mean she's gone?" Lena stepped closer. "She left, with Eli." Eli. The Eli. The ex Sierra swore was history. The guy she blocked on socials, the one she called a closed chapter. Apparently that chapter got rewritten. I just stood there, silent, numb. The buzz in my ears drowned out everything. Guests were whispering, phones were out. My mom gasped. My dad stood up like he was about to hunt someone down. Marcus looked like he was about to throw up. And I cracked. Not in a meltdown kind of way. My brain is trying to keep me from shattering kind of way. I turned to Lena, who was still in her soft blue bridesmaid dress, her arms wrapped around herself like armor. And I said something so stupid, so insane, I still can't explain. "You're wearing a dress close enough to white." The room laughed, nervous, scattered chuckles, not real laughter. Just people trying to figure out what the hell was happening. But I wasn't joking. I walked down from the altar, stared at her. "I'm not standing up here alone today," I said. Lena blinked, speechless. "Ryan, are you serious?" "No, I'm not," I said. "But I need to do something or I'll collapse right here." I don't know why she nodded. I don't know what made her step up beside me, but she did. 10 minutes later, in front of the same guests, under the same floral arch that Sierra and I had chosen together, I married her sister. I married Lena, and the room, it didn't clap out of joy. It clapped like it had to, like people weren't sure if this was a joke or a psychological experiment. We said vows. We kissed. And then, silence. At the reception, which wasn't even a reception anymore, more like a wake, people filtered out awkwardly, tossing me the kind of glances you reserve for car crash survivors. I just sat there with Lena, a plate of untouched food between us, trying to figure out what had just happened. She didn't talk much, but she didn't leave my side either. That night in the honeymoon suite, neither of us had the emotional energy to cancel. I poured whiskey and stared at the wall. "You okay?" she whispered. I laughed. "Nope, not even close." She nodded. "I'm sorry." "It's not your fault," I said. "You didn't leave me for Eli." Then I glanced at her, at the woman I had technically just married, and I said, "You didn't have to do this, you know." She looked down, then softly, "I know. But you looked like you were about to fall." I didn't reply. Just let the silence fill the room. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't dramatic. It was survival. 2 people sitting in the wreckage of a wedding that never was, and a marriage that suddenly was. The next morning felt like waking up in a life I didn't remember choosing. The suite was quiet. Too quiet. I sat up in bed slowly, my throat dry, my face stiff like I'd slept in a freezer. And for half a second, I reached out like Sierra would be next to me, but it wasn't her. It was no one. Lena was curled up on the love seat, her dress from yesterday crumpled around her like a forgotten page from a script, a hotel blanket wrapped over her knees, her hair loose, tangled. Her phone clutched in her hand like it held some kind of lifeline, and suddenly I realized I didn't know a single thing about this woman I just married. I tiptoed into the bathroom. My tux jacket was still on the floor, where I'd thrown it like it had personally betrayed me. The mirror didn't do me any favors. My eyes were red, jaw clenched, skin pale. I looked like a guy who just got left at the altar and panic married his ex-fiancee's sister in front of 100 people. When I came back out, Lena was sitting up, blinking sleep out of her eyes. For a long moment, we just looked at each other, not speaking, like even words felt too fragile right now. Finally, I croaked out, "Did you sleep?" "A little," she said. Her voice was soft, like if she spoke too loud, it would all crack open again. She looked around the room. "Didn't think I'd wake up married today." I let out a dry laugh. "Yeah, life's got jokes." And for the first time, she smiled. Not big, not happy, but real. We didn't talk much after that, just kind of existed in the same space. A little after noon, she said she needed to grab a few things from her apartment and would stop by later. I nodded. I think I said sure, like it was normal. I wasn't ready for what she brought back. There was a knock at my door around 2 a.m. I opened it and there she was, holding a grocery bag in one hand and a pie in the other. "I brought pie," she said, like that explained everything. "Is it sympathy pie or apology pie?" She smiled faintly. "Honesty pie." We sat in the kitchen, didn't touch the pie, just let it sit there between us like some kind of edible truth serum. Finally, she looked up, took a deep breath. "I have to tell you something," she said. I braced for it. "If it's about Sierra, I really don't want to—" "No," she said quickly. "You need to hear this, because I should have told you way before the wedding." She didn't look at me when she spoke, just stared down at her hands like she was afraid of what they might have done. "Sierra," she was still talking to Eli. My heart paused. "For how long?" I asked. My voice was colder than I meant it to be. "Months. Maybe longer. I don't know everything, but I know it wasn't just a one-time thing. He never left, not really, even when you two got engaged." I just stared at her. Every piece of oxygen felt like it was backing away from me. "You knew?" I asked. "I didn't have proof, not all of it," she whispered. "But I saw her texting him and I asked. She swore it was nothing. Catching up, that she just needed closure. And you didn't think I deserved to know." She looked up, and that's when I saw it. Guilt. Real guilt. Not the performative kind Sierra had when she got caught lying about stupid things. This was different. "She's my sister," Lena said. "I was trying to believe her. I wanted to. I wanted her to choose you." But she didn't. "No," Lena admitted. "She didn't." Silence sat heavy between us. Not angry, not tense, just full. And then I asked something I didn't plan to. "Why did you say yes?" Lena blinked. "What?" "At the altar, when I asked. You could have said no, walked away, so why didn't you?" She was quiet. Then, "Because you looked like you were about to break into 1,000 pieces, and I couldn't let you do that alone." It was the most honest thing I'd heard in days. I didn't know what to say after that. We sat, the pie sat, the world kept spinning even though mine had stopped. Eventually, she got up, said she'd give me some space, left without waiting for a response. That night, I sat alone on the balcony, watching cars glide through the city like nothing had changed. But everything had. That's when I realized Sierra had been slipping away long before the wedding. And Lena? She hadn't come to replace her, she had stepped into the wreckage. But what I didn't know was that Sierra wasn't finished with me yet. And neither was the past. The next few days passed in a strange kind of silence. Not the peaceful kind. The kind that hangs in the corners of rooms you used to recognize. I stayed busy, cleaning, walking around the block too many times, opening and closing the fridge. Like I'd forgotten what I was looking for. I didn't hear from Sierra, didn't expect to, but I couldn't stop checking my phone, like some sad reflex still lived in my bones. And then, 4 days after the non-wedding, my phone rang. Blocked. Number. I let it go once. It rang again, and I don't know what possessed me, but I picked up. I didn't even speak. Just waited. "Ryan?" A voice cracked through the line. Familiar, shaky Sierra. I froze. She started. "I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I couldn't not say something." I stayed quiet. Every muscle in my body tensed. "I made a mistake," she continued. "I panicked. I saw Eli and everything just collapsed. I wasn't thinking." "You weren't thinking for a long time. I finally said, my voice dry as dust. Oh, there was silence on the other end. Then, I didn't mean to hurt you. I almost laughed. Sierra, you didn't trip on your heels and fall into his car. You left me. You left me for a guy you swore you were done with. You lied for months, and now you call me like you forgot which chapter we were in? I didn't forget, she whispered. I was scared. Of what? Loving someone who actually chose you? Another pause. Then her voice hardened. Just a little? Are you really with Lena? There it was. I could almost see her twisting the phone cord between her fingers, hoping I'd say no. That I'd say it was all a joke, a breakdown, something temporary, but I wasn't her safety net anymore. I married her, I said. Sierra didn't speak for almost a full minute. I could hear her breathing. I just needed to know. She finally muttered, Why, so you could crash that too? She hung up. I stared at the screen, still glowing as if it might apologize for what just happened, and that was the moment I realized. I wasn't angry anymore. I was tired. So tired of holding grief in my teeth like it was something noble, of pretending I didn't feel twisted up every time I replayed the moment she didn't walk through those chapel doors. But what caught me off guard most was how little I missed her. Later that night, Lena texted, I'm around if you want company. Hesitated. But then I typed, Come over. She showed up with takeout and 2 bottles of root beer. No questions, no expectations, just calm. We sat on the living room floor, ate in silence for a while, and then she said something I didn't see coming. I should have told you everything from the start. I looked up. About Sierra and Eli? She shook her head. No. About before that. She pulled something out of her purse. A photo. It was us, me, Sierra, and Lena, taken at a holiday party maybe 2 years ago. I was standing between them, arm around Sierra. But Lena? Lena was off to the side, barely in frame, looking at me, with a look I'd never seen before. I didn't mean to fall for you, she said quietly. It just happened. My stomach flipped. I opened my mouth, closed it again. She rushed to explain. I never acted on it. I kept my distance. I dated other people. I supported her, you. But the truth is, I always saw you, even when I didn't want to. I didn't know what to feel. It felt like everything I thought I knew was slipping. Again. You wait, are you saying you married me because… No, she interrupted. I married you because you needed someone. And I happened to be standing there, but yes, part of me had always wondered what if. I set the photo down gently. My hands were shaking again. You should have told. Me. I know, she said. But how do you tell someone you love their fiancé? I stood up, pacing now, my brain working too fast, too slow, all at once. This changes things, I muttered. I know. I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time since the wedding, I didn't see the bridesmaid who saved me from collapsing at the altar. I saw someone who had been carrying something huge, quietly, without asking for anything in return. And suddenly, I didn't know whether to run or thank her, so I did neither. I just said, I need air. And I left. I walked 5 blocks, then 10. No destination, just movement. Anything to escape the noise in my chest. By the time I got back, the lights were still on. The pie was still on the counter, but Lena was gone and she'd left a note. 1 sentence. You don't owe me anything, but I meant every word. I stared at Lena's note for a long time. My thumb brushed over the words like they might change if I touched them gently enough. You don't owe me anything, but I meant every word. And that's the thing, isn't it? She meant it. It wasn't a guilt trip. It wasn't a plea. It was Lena being exactly who she had been from the start, brutally honest, even when it hurt. I sat in the dark apartment for what felt like hours, the pie still on the counter, cold root beer sweating through the bottle, her presence still in the room like she'd just stepped out to take a call and would be right back. But she wasn't coming back. Not unless I asked her to, and I didn't even know if I should. But before I could think about Lena, I had to close the door I kept trying to pretend didn't exist, Sierra. So the next morning I called her mother. We hadn't spoken since the wedding disaster. I didn't expect her to answer, but she did. Ryan? There was caution in her voice. Shame. Too, like she expected me to scream. I need answers, I said. She paused, then sighed. You deserve that. She invited me over. Sierra wasn't there. I didn't ask where she was. Her mom sat me down in the kitchen. The same kitchen where we'd once talked about rehearsal dinner plans and honeymoon flights. And now we were drinking cold coffee over a ruined engagement and a sister-shaped void. You were going to find out sooner or later, she said softly. That got my attention. Find out what? She hesitated, then reached for a drawer and pulled out an envelope. Do you remember Sierra's grandfather? Walter McRae? Yeah, I nodded. The one who passed away last fall. She slid the envelope across the table. He left a trust fund, multi-property assets, stocks. He was wealthier than he ever let on. I stared at the envelope, confused. And it came with conditions. The bulk of it only transferred to Sierra after she married. To someone deemed, his words, emotionally stable and publicly respectable. I blinked. Wait. You're saying she had to get married to inherit? Yes. And she didn't tell me? No one did, she said, looking down. Not even Lena. We were sworn to secrecy. Sierra didn't want you to think that had anything to do with her proposal. I sat back, my heart thudding in a new kind of disbelief. Was that why she said yes? Her mother hesitated, her lips a thin line. She loved you, she said finally. But I think she also loved the idea of finally having something of her own. Sierra never liked being second to anyone, not even in her own family. I rubbed my temples. And the minute Eli came back, she panicked, her mother whispered. He gave her chaos, and you gave her structure. She thought she could live in your world, but it terrified her. I didn't know what was worse, that she left me for an ex, or that maybe I'd been a stepping stone for her to cash a dead man's check. The money explained a lot. Why she rushed the engagement, why she insisted on specific photographers, florists, venues, why her moods were always sharper when wedding plans stalled. She wasn't just planning a wedding, she was preparing to cash in on it. I left that house in a daze, carrying an envelope I hadn't opened, full of numbers that now meant nothing. Money doesn't matter when trust is bankrupt. That night, I sat on my couch, envelope unopened, phone in my hand. I wanted to text Lena, apologize, say something, but I didn't. Instead, I opened the envelope. Inside was the trust breakdown, a multi-page document detailing Sierra's inheritance, property in Maine, a townhouse in Charlotte, 6 figures in stocks, and a clause, written in ink so cold it burned. Full inheritance activated upon legal marriage to a vetted beneficiary, no later than age 34. She was 33, and I was the vetted beneficiary. They had my name, listed, signed off. Wasn't just the guy she bailed on. I was the golden ticket. I put the papers down and stared at the ceiling. I felt sick. And then, angry. Not at Sierra. Not anymore. I was angry at myself. For not seeing it. For painting red flags white. For thinking that love alone could carry 2 people when one of them was hiding a parachute the whole time. I got up, grabbed the photo Lena had left, the one of the 3 of us, and I did something I hadn't done in weeks. I called her. She picked up on the second ring. Hey, she said, voice guarded. Are you home? I'm at the coffee place on 5th. Why? I need to see you. Ryan, I don't want to make things harder. It's not harder, I cut in. It's clearer now, a pause. Okay, I'll wait. I got there in 10 minutes. She was sitting at a corner table, sleeves rolled up, half-drunk cappuccino in front of her. I sat down, pulled the envelope from my coat, slid it toward her. She opened it slowly, and I watched her eyes widen as she read. You didn't know, did you? She looked up, stunned. No, I swear, Ryan, I had no idea. I nodded. I believe you. We sat in silence. Then she whispered, What are you going to do? And that's when I said it. The thing I didn't know I was going to say until the words came out of my mouth. I'm going to walk away from every cent, every property, every paper in that trust, and I'm going to do something Sierra never could. What? Choose someone for the right reasons. For the first time in weeks, my mind felt clear, not healed, not fixed, just quiet. After Lena read the inheritance documents, we didn't say much. We just sat there in that little coffee shop like the world had finally stopped spinning long. Enough for us to breathe. I'm sorry she used you, she said quietly. She didn't just use me, I replied. She played a long game, and I let her. Lena nodded slowly. What are you going to do? I exhaled. Nothing. I'm not taking a cent. I'm not responding to any of it. She can keep the money, the properties, the lawyers. I want no part of something built on manipulation. Lena sipped her drink. That's gonna mess with her head. Good, I said. We left the coffee shop together, walked in silence for a few blocks. I offered to walk her home and she didn't say no. When we got to her apartment, she paused at the door. You sure you want to do this? Walk away from it all? I already did, I said. That night we didn't talk about Sierra, or the wedding, or the pie still rotting on my kitchen counter. We just talked. She told me about the time she almost moved to Oregon on a whim. How she once started a podcast and deleted it after 3 episodes. How she'd been in love before, but not like this. Never like this, and I told her that I didn't know what this was yet, but it was the first thing in a long time that felt real. We didn't sleep together that night, we just fell asleep. In the same space. Peacefully, like 2 people who had finally stopped running. But peace has a way of drawing chaos back in. 3 days later, Sierra showed up. No warning. Just a knock on my apartment door. Lena was in the kitchen, barefoot in one of my old hoodies, holding a mug of coffee like it belonged to her, which by now it kind of did. The knock came again, and something in my gut knew. Lena looked at me, and I looked back. We didn't say it, but we both felt it. I opened the door, and there she was. Sierra, hair tied back, face pale, a look on her face like she hadn't slept in a week. "Can we talk?" she asked, voice tight. I stepped outside, closing the door behind me. She looked up at my apartment like she could sense Lena inside. "I didn't come to fight," she said. "I just need 5 minutes." I crossed my arms. 5 minutes. She hesitated, then pulled a letter from her bag. "This is from my grandfather's attorney," she said. "I thought you should know. They're contesting your removal from the beneficiary list." I blinked. "What?" "They're saying you were already registered as a legal partner. Even though we didn't go through with it, the papers were pre-signed for trust validation. They're claiming it still counts. You think I care about that? I think you need to know what's happening behind your back," she snapped. "This isn't me trying to reel you back in. This is me saying, this mess didn't end with the wedding." I narrowed my eyes. "Then why are you here?" She hesitated. Then she said it. "Because I miss you." I shook my head. "No, you miss the version of me that kept choosing you no matter how many times you failed to choose me back." Her eyes glassed over. I was scared. Eli he was never real. He was a shadow of something that I thought meant love. But you were steady. You were home. You left home, Sierra. "I know," she whispered. "But now I want to come back." I turned to go, but she caught my sleeve. "Wait. There's something else." Her voice was shaking. "Now, I didn't come alone." I froze. "What do you mean?" A small figure stepped out from around the stairwell. A little girl, no older than 4. Curly hair, big, scared eyes, and suddenly my lungs forgot how to breathe. Sierra crouched beside her. This is Maya." I backed up. No. Wait, what is this?" "She's mine," she said, trembling. "She's ours." My head started spinning. "You told me you didn't want kids. You said you were on birth control." "I was," she said, voice cracking. "But things happen. I found out after we broke up the first time. I never told you because I wasn't ready. And then when we got back together, I was going to, but You lied to me," I said. "I protected you," she snapped. "You weren't in a place to handle it. I wasn't, but she's here and she deserves to know you." "I'm not her father." "You are biologically," she said. "You were there even if you didn't know." I stood frozen, cold air biting through my clothes. I looked at Maya again, quiet, clinging to Sierra's hand. She had Sierra's eyes, but there was something about the tilt of her head, the way she furrowed her brows. She looked like me. "Don't know what to do," I whispered. "You don't have to decide now," Sierra said quickly. I needed you to know, before someone else told you." I turned, reeling, and walked back inside. Lena looked up from the kitchen, eyes searching mine. She knew. Instantly what happened. I couldn't speak, so I said the only word that came to me, "Daughter." That word left my mouth like a stranger, like it didn't belong to me. But it did. Somehow, Lena didn't speak right away. She just stood there, frozen, mug of coffee still in her hand, but I saw her fingers tighten around it. Not out of shock, but preparation. "She's yours?" she asked quietly. I nodded. "I didn't know, I swear." She closed her eyes for a moment. "Of course you didn't." There was no anger in her voice, but something had changed. The room felt heavier. I sat on the edge of the couch, elbows on my knees. "Her name's Maya. She's 4. Do you believe her?" I didn't answer at first because yes, I did. The second I saw that little girl, I knew. She looked like me, not just in the mirror sense, but in the way she watched the world. Cautious, quiet, absorbing everything. Lena finally sat down across from me. "You don't owe me anything," she said. "Whatever happens next, it's yours to figure out." I wanted to reach for her, say don't go, say we'll figure it out. But I didn't. Because this wasn't about what I wanted. It was about a little girl who had no idea what she just stepped into. That night I barely slept. I walked the floors until the sun started bleeding through the blinds. I played out every version of the future. One where I ignored it all and stayed with Lena. One where I tried to co-parent from a distance. One where I walked back into Sierra's life for Maya's sake and lost myself in the process. They all hurt. The next morning I met Sierra at a park. She was on a bench with Maya bundled in a pink coat, kicking her feet back and forth like kids do when the world still feels simple. When Maya saw me, she didn't run. She didn't smile. She just looked. And in that moment I felt something fracture inside me. Because it wasn't about Sierra. It was never about Sierra. It was about the life I never got to know. The bedtime stories I never read. The first words I didn't hear. The tears I never wiped away. I sat beside her. "Hi," I said. Gently she tilted her head. "Are you the man from the stairs?" I smiled softly. "Yeah, I guess I am." Sierra gave us space. Maya and I talked. About crayons and her favorite snack, strawberries with sugar, and the stray cat that visits her window every morning. She didn't know what was happening, but she was trying. So was I. After an hour, I walked Sierra to her car. She turned to me. "What now?" I looked at her, at the woman who broke me, the woman who built her escape route from the day we got engaged, the woman who hid a child from me for 4 years, and I said, "I'm not coming back to you," she flinched. "But I am coming back for her." Sierra looked stunned. "You want custody?" "No," I said. "I want connection, stability. She deserves to know where she came from. She deserves 2 parents, even if they're not together. I'll work with a lawyer. We'll set boundaries. But this..." I gestured between us. "This is over." She nodded. Tears welled up, but she didn't stop me as I walked away. That night I went to Lena's apartment. She opened the door before I knocked. "I saw you from the window," she said. "I didn't know where else to go." She stepped aside. "Let me do no questions." We sat in silence again, the way we always seemed to when things were too big for words. And then I told her everything. About the park, the conversation, the choice. "And?" she asked softly. "I chose Maya," I said. "Not instead of you, not against you, but because she didn't ask for any of this and now she's in it. And if I can give her something real, I have to try." Lena nodded slowly. "I understand." And then I said, "But I'm not giving up on this either." She looked up. I leaned forward, my voice low, raw. "I'm not asking you to be okay with it. I'm asking you to let me try, let me be a father, and still try to be a man worth loving." Her eyes filled. She reached across the couch and took my hand. "You already are." In the weeks that followed, life didn't magically repair itself. There were meetings with attorneys, long, messy conversations with Sierra, sleep-deprived nights filled with second-guessing everything. But there were also Saturdays at the zoo, finger painting on my living room floor. Lena sitting beside me, Maya's hair in her lap, braiding it as the little girl rambled about superheroes. Never expected a wedding to end in a custody agreement, or that the sister of my ex-fiancé would be the one holding my world together. But that's what happened. Love didn't come in a neat box. It came after a storm. It came because of one. And one day, months later, Maya asked me something that stopped me in my tracks. "Are you and Lena married?" "No," I said, smiling. "Not yet." She scrunched her face. "You should be." Lena laughed from the kitchen. "I like her already." And in that moment, I realized something. Some families are built in hospitals, others in coffee shops, courthouses and crash landings, and ours started at the altar, when the bride didn't show up and her sister did. That's the end of today's story. Did things turn out the way you thought? Or were there some surprises along the way? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think. If you enjoyed this journey, don't forget to hit the like button. And if you haven't joined the community yet, now's the perfect time. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you're always the first to catch new stories. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next adventure.